Hey, flower friends. Before we dive into today's episode, I've got something really exciting to share. Whether you're growing hundreds of dahlias in your backyard or running a small flower farm, if you're serious about building a profitable dahlia business in 2026, then this is for you. You're invited to join us for the Profitable Dahlia Summit, a 2-day virtual event happening March 3rd through 4th, 2026. You'll learn from over 10 expert dahlia farmers who are selling out tuber sales, supplying dahlias to florists and weddings, hosting profitable U-Picks and CSA programs, and building real income from their dahlias. These are the strategies and advice I wish I had years ago, and they're all being taught live inside the summit. Tickets are $99 for live access or $199 for lifetime access with bonus resources from our speakers. If you want 2026 to be your most profitable dahlia season yet, be sure to visit the link in the show notes and grab your ticket today. Welcome to the Backyard Bouquet Podcast, where stories bloom from local flower fields and home gardens. I'm your host, Jennifer Galizia of the Flowering Farmhouse. I'm a backyard gardener turned flower farmer located in Hood River, Oregon. Join us for heartfelt journeys shared by flower farmers and backyard gardeners. Each episode is like a vibrant garden, cultivating wisdom and joy through flowers. From growing your own backyard garden to supporting your local flower farmer, the Backyard Bouquet is your fertile ground for heartwarming tales and expert cut flower growing advice. All right, flower friends, grab your gardening gloves, garden snips, or your favorite vase because it's time to let your backyard bloom. Today's guest is Fawn Rueckert, founder of Sego Lily Flower Farm, a small but mighty suburban flower farm nestled on just a third of an acre in the heart of Salt Lake Valley. Fawn's love of flowers was planted early, curled up beside her mother, listening to the story of the secret garden, and nurtured by generations of women who shared cuttings, seed catalogs, herbs, and time in the garden. From geranium stems rooting in jars of water to sweet peas climbing in backyard beds, flowers became a through line of memory, family, and belonging. Years later, after moving from Southern California to Utah with her husband and 4 sons, Fawn finally claimed her own little bit of earth. What began as a dream potager and cutting garden grew into Sego Lily Flower Farm, founded in 2017 with a focus on unique, locally grown flowers that don't travel well, grow sustainably and safely for both family and community. In today's conversation, we're talking about flower farming in small spaces, the power of local blooms, growing with intention, and how Fawn's focus and business have evolved over the years. I'm so excited to share Fawn's story with you. All right, Fawn, welcome to today's episode. Thanks so much for joining.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, it's such an honor. Well, when I was learning about you, I have to say that I discovered your farm because at the end of our 2025 season, I asked listeners what they would like to hear for this year. And I had multiple people reach out and mention your name. So I had to reach out. And when I was looking at your bio, I was drawn to the fact that your love of flowers goes back to the secret garden. What was it about that story that stayed with you?
I think it was just the mystery. It was the first time I was probably 6 when my mom read it to me. And I think the romance of it all kind of captured me. And I just always loved it. But I always wanted my own little secret garden.
And do you consider your third of an acre your secret garden now?
Kind of. I actually have a little garden off to the side in my side yard that we've kind of blocked off on either side. So you have to walk through it. And we call that the secret garden. But yeah, the
Oh,
rest of it's just the farm, I guess.
I love that. And you were surrounded by women growing up who gardened. You have mentioned your mom, multiple grandmothers, even a step grandmother. How did learning from so many generations shape how you see flowers today?
I think there's a great nostalgia with flowers. Like it's so common to have someone say, "Oh, sweet peas remind me of my grandmother," or like for me, peonies really remind me of my mom, even though she never grew them. She loved them, but you can't grow them in Southern California. So, or I see a red geranium and I think of my grandmother. They were all very casual gardeners, though, and I think some of them would be really excited for me, and then some of them would think I've gone a little overboard. But um yeah, I think there's just something that about flowers that bring, and even their scent that brings just memories back.
Absolutely. Well, I love that. I probably should have started a little bit more at the beginning of your story. So we know that you fell in love with flowers because of the secret garden. Walk us forward from that time you fell in love with flowers, and how did your journey evolve over the years?
I always loved flowers. I remember as a 10-year-old, I spent my money on a carnation plant, like a little dianthus in a pot.
Oh,
But when I moved to Utah, I always loved farmers markets too. I've always loved the idea of supporting local businesses, eating local food. And when I moved here, I started looking for the farmers markets. And I'd go to the farmers markets, and the big gaping difference between Southern California and Utah was there were no flowers at the farmers market. And so once we moved from our first little house to the house we're at currently, and we actually had some room to grow, I was like, oh, I'm going to grow some flowers, a big vegetable garden to feed all my hungry teenage boys, and then flowers for myself. But the more I researched it and the more I planned it, I was like, well, maybe I could sell them too. I could be the farmer that brings flowers to the farmer's market.
so you didn't set out with an intention to grow flowers commercially.
No, it kind of just happened.
I think that's how it's happened for a lot of us. That there's very few people I talk to that say they knew they were going to be a flower farmer growing up. So you noticed that there was a void in Salt Lake. How did you go from thinking, I'm going to maybe be that person at the market, to actually taking those steps? What steps did you take to then start a farm and get into the market?
Yeah, I think there's only one way to do things, and that's just to do it. Like sometimes you just have to make that leap, and it can be really scary. And I was really concerned with whether I could grow enough flowers on my property because it's not very big. But I ended up at a farmer's market. We went to all these different farmers markets around the valley to kind of think about which one I wanted to try and sell at. And I ended up at a brand new one. And so the market was new, I was new, and we kind of just grew together. So as I was able to produce more flowers, the market was also building in clientele. And that was a really nice kind of transition. So um, I was lucky that there wasn't huge demand as a brand new gardener or farmer, and I could kind of slowly learn and build up.
So you found a new market. Were you the only flower farmer at the market?
Yes. In fact, they would only allow, even now, they only allow one market, one farmer, flower farmer at that market. So it was nice not having a lot of competition. I've since kind of backed off for maybe it was 6 years. 6 years, I did the farmer's market 18 weeks out of the season every Saturday. Um, and I had gotten an additional piece of land down the street. These two adorable little ladies had a double lot, and they had to pay to have it mowed and their sprinklers taken care of and all these things. And so they offered it to me. And so it was a great win-win because I had more land, and then I gave them flowers and they didn't have to maintain the property. Um, and so as I needed more flowers, I had that space too. But eventually they moved because of health issues and I lost that land. And so after a while, the last couple of years, I've only gone to the market a couple times a year. And other parts of my business have just kind of grown and overtaken that time and revenue.
So was it because you lost the extra growing space that you stepped back from the market, or because your business was starting to evolve?
It was kind of both. It happened at a really good time. Like I was starting to get really burnt out going to the market every week and growing that much when I had these other components of my business. Um, but I loved the farmers market. It was my first really place of business. I had all these customers that I just loved. So it was almost a good thing that I lost that land because I really did need to take a step back. But it was hard for me emotionally to make that decision. So,
It's hard when we lose something without our choosing. Because I lost my growing space, my least growing space, a couple years ago also, and it wasn't my choice, but unfortunately there were circumstances outside of my control. And I truly believe, in hindsight, looking back, that life is always happening for us, and you may not realize why things are happening in the moment, but sometimes things have to happen for you to move forward and have new experiences in life. So help us, paint us a picture, walk us through, what does Sego Lily Flower Farm look like today?
okay. So we're back to just growing on our little third acre. We focus on spring. I've got about 250 peonies on our property.
Wow.
So we have a peony subscription. We used to do tulips and peonies, but I also run a program at another farm about a half an hour away where we grow plugs for farmers. So we do a wholesale program, and then we also do a like backyard garden program where we sell collections and we do these plant sales. And that takes up so much time in the spring that I would work a full 8 hours, 9 hours there, and then come home and like harvest tulips in the dark. And I'd harvest them before I left, and I'd still lose them because they'd blow open during the day. And so I'm not doing tulips this year. So that's another thing. It's like, yeah, those changes come because you're just like, okay, this is not fitting this business model anymore. But
So you recognize that the tulips weren't fitting your business because you just didn't have time for them as your business was evolving. You mentioned you're helping at another farm. Walk us through, what are you doing there?
okay, so I love the Snuck Flowers program. We back in 2019, I was like a second year grower and I was trying to make friends. This is going to be a long story,
Okay,
but
I'm here for it.
um, I was trying to make friends with other flower farmers. When I first started, I could only find like two other flower farmers in the state. And
Only
I
two
had gotten
other in the whole state?
in the whole state. It just
Oh,
wasn't really happening in Utah yet. And um, so I had gotten all these buckets for free at the local grocery store. And so I kind of sent out messages to like people that I heard were just starting up. And I was like, do you want buckets? You have to come to my house. So I like lured them to my house to make friends. And as we started all making connections, we hosted a little gathering at a conference put on the local by USU, Utah State University, and we started forming this association. And so we formed the Utah Cut Flower Farm Association, and as our first big event, we had um, a welcome event. And at that welcome event, this local farmer who grows hydroponic greens had come because she was interested in what we were doing. And I gave a talk at that, and she saw me, and she had had this piece of land on her property that they had tried growing vegetables on, but they didn't really have the manpower to maintain it and grow properly. And so she wanted to do a cut flower class, something that would be hands on the whole season long. So, really like a course. And so she offered me that collaboration with her. And so I started teaching that class. And during that class, I taught seed starting. And one of the ladies said, this is really fun to learn. This is great, but I don't want to do it. Can you do it for me?
Can you
And I
do the
said,
seed starting for her?
yes. Like, will you grow the plants? She's like, I don't want to be busy with that during the winter. Just, let me come pick them up from you. And I talked to the owner, Paige, Westover, that night after class. And I said, hey, they want us to do this. And she's like, okay, let's do it. And so at first I was just a consultant, but in August of 2021, I came on full time to run the program, and it's just grown exponentially since then. And it just takes a lot more time. So my farm has kind of receded as this program has grown. And but I really love it. I love growing seeds, and I love that I am making life hopefully a little bit easier for backyard growers that just want to grow beautiful things in their backyard, but especially for the farmers in my area. Because even though there were just two when I first started, we've got a couple hundred now. And so, yeah, I grow wholesale plugs for about 100 farmers now.
Oh my goodness, that's a lot. So Sego Lily is still operating. It's a little bit smaller than it originally was because you had this pivot opportunity, and this new farm is called where you're growing the
So
plugs.
So it's Snuck Flowers at Snuck
Snuck,
Farm. Yeah,
Snuck
and Snuck
Flowers
Farm,
at Snuck Farm.
yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So Snuck Farm primarily grows hydroponic greens, and they have a kitchen program where they make delicious, healthy, nutritious food, and they sell it through their farm shop. And they had this extra growing space that they weren't really using in a real profitable way. And so they had been growing the plants for our little class. And so it was just kind of a like, well, we'll just grow a few more. And then it ends up we're using the entire 6,000 square foot greenhouse now to grow cut flower plugs. And that's
Wow.
all we do. There's no bedding plants. We're not growing petunias or anything else, just cut flowers.
Is this a heated greenhouse?
Yes.
Okay, because in Utah, I imagine it gets pretty cold in the wintertime.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow. So, what started as you trying to make some flower friends and giving away some buckets has turned into a huge plug operation for the floral industry. And
Yes.
so, where do you ship these plugs? Do you have to be in Utah? How does your program work?
We only sell to local growers that can pick up. I guess if you wanted to drive and pick them up, we do have people that grow down in southern Utah that will come and pick them up from us, and it's a 4-hour drive. Um, but we just sell locally. We don't do any shipping.
Wow. And that probably simplifies it so much.
Yes, I can't imagine having to ship all these orders. They're gigantic, and we also I love that we can get plugs. I love Farmer Bailey. I just went to Amsterdam with him and his company. Um, and I love what they do. The first time I grew lisianthus was through Farmer Bailey plugs. But I also love the idea of being able to, like, we're always saying buy local flowers. I think it's great when you can buy other things locally to support your farm, like plugs or other resources that you need. So it's nice to kind of cut down on some of the transportation costs that are involved in shipping plugs.
Absolutely. Shipping has gotten so expensive, and depending on the time of year, I feel like I have losses that happen, or UPS or FedEx will deliver it and I'll show up at my front door and it's the box says this side up and the box is pointing the wrong direction and plugs are everywhere in it. So I'm sure that simplifies it. Help us understand your clientele or customer base for these plugs. Is it more backyard gardeners? Are you finding flower farmers are buying these plugs? Who are you supplying to?
We have two customer groups. We have our wholesale group, which is just farmers. It's people with a business license. They have to submit that before we even send them the link to order because they order it tax free. And then we have a big group of backyard growers that really don't have access to things like lisianthus or cut flower perennials. And we're making it a lot more available. So when they're scrolling their feed and they're like, I wish I could grow what that farmer grows, they can come to one of our plant sales or pre-order a collection, and they can come and get those lisianthus or the cut flower varieties of ranunculus and all the really fun goodies that people would want to grow.
What types of flowers are you mainly growing?
Lisianthus is a huge crop for us because it's so time consuming to grow and intimidating, I think, for people. So we just finished sowing this last week. We did about 120,000 lisianthus. And then we do like 120 varieties of things. So from zinnias, cut flower zinnias, to snapdragon's another big one. Uh, yeah, ranunculus. You name it, we kind of grow it.
Is it people ask for certain things or you have a catalog that they can choose from to order?
I really pull a lot from my own experience.
Okay.
And so I've curated a list of things that I know grow well. And so that's primarily what I offer to our backyard growers. The list for wholesale is a little bit larger, and I will have those farmers, I ask them at the end of the season, like, what are you wanting? What are you interested in? And so they'll sometimes say, oh, I want this color of snapdragon. Or can you get this seed? Or I've seen people growing this kind of coreopsis. I want to try it, and so I'll add those things in. I usually like to try and make sure I know how to grow it if it's a new variety, and so I won't offer it for pre-order until we've started it one season.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are you offering these plugs year round, or is there just a certain window that you are sowing seeds and selling plugs?
Yeah, so it's really set up for our climate. We have 4 pickup dates, the beginning of March, April, May, and the very end of May, which we call our June pickup. They're 4 weeks apart, and so it helps everybody do successions. It's kind of set up with our frost dates in mind here in northern Utah. Um, so it's very local centric. Like, it is built for our farmers in mind.
Okay, so you do 4 pickups. You said it's spaced 4 weeks apart. Is that right? So
Yeah.
that's about a 16-week window.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when do you start the plugs?
So we started our first lisianthus in November, at the end of November.
Oh my goodness, you've been growing them for a while now. Because
Yeah.
we're recording in January, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when
Keeps us busy.
your first pickup will be when?
The first week of March.
First week of March. Okay. And I imagine, do you still have snow on the ground in Utah in March, or what's the weather like?
Yeah, we have most of the people have their last frost date about mid-May. A few
Okay.
have it a week or two earlier, and a few have it towards the end of May, depending. We've got lots of mountains, and so we've got lots of zones, and so we have those 4 pickup dates so that people could kind of choose which one really works the best for them. So we definitely will still have snow in May or April and no, sorry, March and April. Um, but those cold hardy plants is what we're selling during that time frame. We're
Okay.
not offering zinnias then, just the cold hardy things.
Gotcha. Thank you for that clarification. So I imagine there's some people listening today thinking, well, like someone like me, envious that they don't have to sow all these seeds because seeds take up a lot of space, especially things like lisianthus. I bought all these seeds and I was gonna sow my lisianthus this year. And then it was like, oh my gosh, do I really have the time and space to use it? And yes, I wanted to avoid the plugs, but at the same time, or I'm sorry, I wanted to avoid the shipping of the plugs and just do it myself, but it's not always economical. So I think this is such a great idea. So people are probably listening thinking, is this something that my area could have? Do you have any advice for someone listening who's like, my area needs this. How do I get it going?
Yeah, I think if you're really good at seed starting, it's a great thing, and you have space. That's the beautiful thing with my farm. Like, obviously, I'm a very small farm, but collaborating with Snuck Farm, it gave me an opportunity to use these skills that I have, and they have the space. So it's been a little bit magical that way. But if you can find someone that has the growing space, or if you have the growing space and maybe you have a friend that's really great at growing seeds, then you can have a collaboration. And if you're really lucky, maybe you just have both. The fact that we have an association here in Utah and we have a community has definitely helped people know about what Snuck Flowers does. And so I think being involved in a community of like minded people that are growing flowers, other flower farmers, is really important. Maybe you can do that through the Association of Specialty Cut Flower Growers and going to those regional meetings or farm tours and networking. I think building a strong community is important. And then together you can kind of figure out those resources together.
And you founded the association in Utah, is that correct?
With a bunch of other people. Like, it was a very much a group effort. But I was one of the founding members with a wonderful group of people. I served as vice president for a number of years, and then I'm just wrapping up my term as president at the end of this month. We have our fourth conference. We have a Utah Flower Conference, and Snuck Farm has been one of the sponsors of that organization since the beginning. And so there's just been a great community there that's just kind of building things together.
So, how did you, with this group of other growers, decide to start an association? What was the point where you said, this isn't something that's just a good idea, but this is something we actually need?
Well, it's kind of funny because I have a good friend, Lindsay Wattups from Three Sprout Dahlias, and she is like just a great person for making friends. Like, she will go and up to any stranger. She's great at networking, and she'll call people she doesn't know and say, "Can I come to your farm?" And she did that with me. And so she came over and we started chatting, and we're like, we should start a book club or a little association, but we weren't quite as maybe as uh, I'm trying to think of the word. Um, we didn't have a clear picture of exactly what that would be, but we had another farm, Heather Griffiths from Wasatch Blooms, and she was like, "We need an official, technical, like professional organization for flower farmers. Like, we need to build up our industry here in Utah because we were all so new. We started it when we were first and second year growers." But we wanted to protect the industry. We wanted to make sure people understood pricing so that we could all be sustainable. Um, and so Heather really had the vision to make it a nonprofit. She filled out all the forms, and we kind of just tagged along. And then as things really started rolling, we all had our own skills. Some of us were really good at holding events and reaching out, and it was really a great group effort, and it's just kind of grown. We kind of started out with a few meetings or farm tours, and now we have something called the Utah Flower Day, which we're trying to get people, the public here in Utah, to understand the benefits of local flowers. And then we have our conference that educates our farmers during the winter.
So, how many growers are now part of the association?
So someone told me last night that we're up to 190.
Wow. And when you started,
Yeah.
there were only a few flower farmers in Utah.
Hmm. Yeah. When I started, I could just find two on Instagram.
That's
So,
amazing. I think that
yeah.
really speaks to the power of local flowers and also the power of lifting each other up. And I really believe that when we support one another, we're creating more opportunity for everyone. I know some people have the scarcity mindset that like there's already too many, but I think that there's still plenty of room, especially when we're still hearing about 80% of our flowers being imported outside or imported from outside of the US. It's like there's still lots of opportunity for us to grow.
Absolutely. I just think that as Americans, we don't or we don't purchase flowers like we could. Like we think of it as only a special occasion thing. And I run a subscription, and those people that get those flowers every week, it just makes them happy. Like I get such great feedback. And I think there's so much more room just in even just increasing the markets that we just don't think about. Like we don't just have to replace imports. There's people out there that I think if they knew about local flowers, they'd love having them in their homes.
I love that you said something about the mindset of how it's not just replacing, or it doesn't even need to be necessarily replacing those imported flowers. It's the idea of people just being excited and knowing about local flowers. I think back to when I lived in Europe. I lived in Italy in college. And at the market, people would just buy the flowers and they just adorn their house with those flowers. And it was just part of the everyday routine of part of adding beauty in their life. And when you said that, I was thinking about how many times have I been at a market and said, "Oh, what's your occasion for buying flowers today?" And right there, I've got that stereotype in my mind, even of what's your special occasion versus do we really need an occasion or a reason to buy flowers?
Yeah. The other thing I think I hear at markets is people will say, "Oh, I don't have anyone to buy them for." Like, it's not my mom's
Yes.
birthday, right? And
Mhm.
I think I usually try to gently say, "You deserve flowers too. Like, you can buy them for yourself. You're just as worthy, right? And you don't need that special occasion." Yeah.
Oh, that's a good reminder because I have heard people say that before. And it's just having that awareness, I think, and these kind of conversations that can educate all of us and the power of talking with fellow growers of someone says to you, like you just said, "Oh, I don't have anyone to buy for today." That is such a perfect thing to respond back to and just say, "Well, why don't you buy them for yourself?" Because I have my CSA subscribers. I have one amazing subscriber, and she would pick up her bouquet every week. And then she'd say, "Can I buy a second bouquet?" And at first I would ask her, I'd say, "Oh, who's the second one for?" And she'd say, "It's for me." And she would put one in her office and one in her kitchen or wherever in her house. She's like, "I just want to have flowers for myself wherever I am." And I
I
don't think
love that.
you don't have to have that permission, or the permission is to give it to yourself, I guess. So thank you for
Yes.
that reminder, that little light bulb for me today. So, um, so let's talk a little bit more about your association because that fascinates me. You have 190 members now in Utah. You mentioned you have an upcoming conference. How do you stay connected with your members throughout the year?
So we try when we first started, we were like, we'll write a newsletter. And we had this business coach that was willing to kind of meet with us for free. It was really kind of her. And she was like, well, newsletters are probably the most static way to interact with your members. Like, you want to be networking. And it really kind of lit some fires under us. So we started holding like a winter event. And then COVID hit. And so it did. We wanted to do farm tours and we wanted to do all these things. So we really got the ball rolling once we were allowed to kind of meet together. So we do 2 farm tours a year, one in the spring and one in the fall. We have our conference, and then we do blooming Zooms, which this year we're going to start doing them at noon. We usually did them in the evenings, but we do them any week, any month we don't have some other event going on. We will either ask local people. We just had a local florist talk about what local florists are looking for as far as
Oh,
flowers or how to work with them. And then we'll have other people. We've had Jenny Love speak to us. I think we're having Ben Hartman from Lean Farming speak to us this year. And so it's nice because Utah's not super small, and we've got people from the top of the state down to the bottom of the state. And so being able to meet online has been really great. And we can pull people in. It might be hard to get Ben Hartman to come out to the conference, but we could do something online with him. So
I love that. That's great. And is your association, I'm having trouble with that word today. Is your association affiliated with the ACS, ASC? Oh my gosh, I'm struggling with words today. The Association of Specialty Cut Flower Growers. Are you guys involved with them, or is that completely separate?
it is separate, but like they're a sponsor for our conference. They were very generous with donating to us this year. And we've attended, like, our board. We get grants. So we do have the members pay dues. But we also have some very low, some very generous local businesses that make a lot of what we do possible. And so one year we were able to send through a couple different grants. We were able to send 4 board members to the ASCFG conference. And so there is some, like, we love learning from them, and we look at what they do, and they're so inspirational. So we definitely think about what we could do that they're doing on maybe a local level. But there's a lot of our members that are just growing in backyards, and they have young families, and they just can't always make it across the country to go to a conference or a farm tour. And so there's this great power in being able to, like, there's 190 of us that we can bring people to us now. And so it just creates a lot more opportunities, and we don't have to go quite as far afield for them.
That's great. You mentioned that a lot of your members are growing more on a backyard scale. Do you know how many of your growers are growing on certain size of land, or do you have that data?
We are actually, when people sign up for the conference, we've got a little survey for them this year. And so we'll have maybe a little bit more, because it really does help us. Like, how many of them have high tunnels? That helps us create content for the next year. We know we should ask someone who grows in a high tunnel to speak at one of our blooming Zooms or at the conference. So we'll have that. I would say 80% are under an acre or less, if I had to guess. And some of them are growing in, like, on an eighth of an acre or something like that.
I love that you have so many various sizes in your association. I think that so many flower farmers do grow on under an acre, though, and it's because you can produce so much in such a small space. And you've been doing this for a while. What advice do you have for one of our listeners that is growing in that backyard, that 1/8, that's just starting out this year? Because this episode's airing in January of 2026. What advice do you have for someone who's starting that new backyard flower farm?
Um, when I first started, I wondered if I had enough space. And I was listening to Slow Flowers, and that was like the only cut flower podcast when I started. I think this is my 10th season that I'm going into. And there was a farmer up in Canada. I think she's since stopped her business and lives on a boat or something cool like that. But she was so inspirational because she just grew in a bunch of her neighbors' yards, and she had like about an eighth of an acre. And she talked about what she did, and it made it accessible. I was like, oh, I could do that. I could grow
Mhm.
just a couple rows of things. And flowers are so abundant. And I think all you need to do is just kind of start experimenting. Like, grow a few things. Don't maybe grow 20 things, but grow 10. Grow some snaps, some zinnias. Just kind of dip your toe in, and you'll see just how abundant they are. And I think as you grow, you get more experience every year, even in the nursery at Stuck Flowers. Every year we grow something, and I go, oh, there's a little way I can make this a little bit better. And so as you continue to grow, you'll get better and better at producing abundantly. So just try it, do it. No one can tell you you're too small.
Oh, that's good. I like that. For someone growing on that small scale, on that eighth of an acre, for your Utah base, looking at a lot of the growers in your area, where are they finding success? Is it through roadside stands? Is it through farmers markets? Where are you seeing the biggest impact?
I think we have a lot of our growers growing for farmers markets. It's fun to see them there. There are more people experimenting with farm stands. It is a very new industry, so there's still a lot of
Mhm.
exploration happening. We have, I want to say it's 4 collectives now. We have 4 collectives, and so a lot of these small growers are banding together and growing for florists
Mhm.
and for the public a little bit, but they sell collectively. So maybe you only have 2 bunches of white snapdragons, but if the other 5 growers in your collective have enough, then you can meet some of those demands together.
That's a great way of doing it. We don't have any collectives in our area. It was just kind of we've always tossed the idea around because we have about 30 growers in my region. And it's always one of those things that it's hard to get off the ground because it requires someone who's willing to take the helm and put it all together. And you've you've started one of these associations. You know that it's a lot of work, I imagine, to get something off the ground.
Yeah, the association doesn't sell collectively. We're really more
Okay.
of an educational resource and a networking resource. I think most of these collectives have started at an event where people started talking. They're like, oh, we should, and so they've met, they've made relationships, and then they grow. But you're absolutely right. I feel like in each of the collectives, someone said, I want to make this happen. And it's a lot of work and it can be risky, and it's interesting watching them. I feel like every one of them have kind of a different approach, and I'm not involved in any of them, so I kind of just sit back and go, that's cool, that's interesting, so yeah, you kind of have to think about what's going to work best.
Absolutely. And I love that you said that this industry is really still evolving because so many more people are growing on this small scale. I also love that you mentioned networking because I think that that is so important in our industry. The only way, because so many of us are so small, and I mean, I consider myself small. We steward 20 acres, we grow on about 2 acres currently. But that's still in the grand scheme of farming, especially in the United States by the USDA's definition of what a farm is. All of us are small scale farmers. So the only way for us to gain traction and momentum is to band together. And one of the best ways to do that is through these networking events, whether it's through a local conference or an association or joining the ASCFG or showing up at a summit or going to an event and connecting with other people. What what advice do you have for some of these newer growers that are going to these networking? Because you're obviously really good at these networking events. How do you go from saying, okay, I've got these ideas. Maybe I'll go check out one of these events this year in 2026. How do they get involved with those events? What's your suggestion to make the most of them?
To make the most of them, first, I think you just need to go. I think when you're starting and you go, oh, a conference, like our conference is $150. Unless you're a member, you get a pretty substantial discount. And I see a lot of growers go, oh, $150, how many seeds could I buy with that? Like, it feels like such an insurmountable amount.
Hmm.
And being on the other side of that, I'm like, the value's there, just do it. Like, be willing to invest in yourself and invest in your business. Take that leap of faith so that you can go and you can meet people. And then once you're there, um, be okay with being uncomfortable and sitting next to someone new, and sitting next to someone new at lunch, and make your way around. Like, just be friendly. Everybody's waiting for someone. I mean, I have got teenagers, so I'm always telling them the same thing. Like, you think everybody's looking at you, but everybody's worried about themselves. Like, just be
Totally.
willing to ask questions, make friends. We can do this. beautiful, beautiful things happen. I think the thing that I love the most out of my farming journey is the relationships that have happened. I have some really dear friends to me that I didn't know when I started farming. And like, I love my customers, but I think it's the flower farmers and the people that I've taught through my course. We've gotten to spend so much time together, and we can relate to so much that, even not just from a business perspective, but even just from a like emotional support system.
Mhm.
You know, my husband will only listen to me talk about pest control for so long, but these friends, we're solving problems together. It's just so worth it.
I have to say, my husband was joking just last night as we were making dinner. He's like, I'm going to create a support group for the spouses of flower farmers that have to listen to flower talk all day long. I just laughed. I was like, one day you're going to love it. He's like, no, I do love the flowers. I'm just joking. But I love that you said that, to have that community, because when you're growing for scale or growing commercially, it's so different than just having a backyard garden. And to be able to talk to other people that understand those struggles and can give you advice or encouragement is so helpful. So thank you for sharing that. I also loved when you mentioned how people are nervous to spend that $100 or $200 to invest in their education and developing themselves. And I was having this conversation just the other week, is that especially if you're a dahlia grower, people will, without hesitation, line up for hours to queue up on a website to spend $45 for a newly released dahlia tuber that, yes, is absolutely beautiful and we all want in our gardens. But at the same time, they hesitate to spend that same amount of money on themselves. And it's like, how many more times is that investment going to multiply in yourself? And I know personally, I've never regretted a single dollar that I've spent on personal development. And I swear it comes back tenfold between the connections I make. Some of my best friends are in the flower industry, and I talk to them more than anyone else because they can commiserate with what I'm going through. Um, and just the knowledge of what you can, the saying, I don't remember who said this, so I apologize, but I was at a mastermind in November and a friend said, you can go fast alone or you can go far together. And I think that that's so true for flower farmers too, especially when you show up at these conferences. You gain so much knowledge from each other and sharing ideas and best practices that you can go so much further working together. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I love that. It reminds me a little bit of, we also do research. We fund some grants for research. We
Oh,
have Melanie Stock that helps with our grant cycles, and she does a lot of research here in Utah. And then I think she's speaking right now, actually, at the ASCFG conference.
okay.
Um, and really, there was no, like, when I started trying to research how to grow things here in Utah, um, she moved here, I think, in the fall of 2018. And it was so exciting to have someone helping us research. And we funded 4 studies just for this year. And that's
Wow.
like real, actual data that we can use and apply in our farms. And so it's kind of exciting that way too.
That is exciting. What are you looking forward to this year?
Oh, that's a really good question. This might sound counterintuitive with what we've been talking about, but I'm really excited to be handing the reins over for the association to someone new. So my term is up, because it has taken up a lot of my bandwidth the last,
Mm.
7 or so years. And I'm really excited to see what our new president, Molly Payne, will do. She's so smart, and she's such a good grower, and just has some skills and ideas that I don't. And so I'm really excited to see what she does with it. And I'm excited to have just a little more free time to maybe pursue things. I'd love to write something about lisianthus. I love growing it. And so but I haven't had the time, so I'm kind of excited to have a little breathing room to explore some new things.
Oh, okay. Since you have mentioned lisianthus a couple times, do you think you could give us a couple tips so that our listeners can grow better lisianthus from seed?
Sure. I think if they're attempting it from seed, the first little obstacle is germination. And usually, I find that people, if they're struggling with germination, they just need to apply a little more heat. So having a heat mat that's set around 70, like 68 to 70 degrees, is pretty ideal. And you can get germination a little faster, like maybe in 10 to 12 to 14 days instead of twice that. And then once they've germinated, lisianthus are pretty hungry. And so you want to fertilize them pretty frequently and maybe a little heavier than maybe some of the other seedlings that you're growing at the same time. So that's probably the biggest thing. I had a chance to, when we were in Amsterdam, we went to this big lisianthus grower, and they grow 60 million stems a year.
Wow.
It was amazing, and it was really interesting. They take that big grower actually doesn't start any of their own seeds. They buy all young plants and plugs, and they plant them in like a 90-degree greenhouse. And so it was just kind of interesting seeing that. So I do want to start some trials on, like, I feel like we're doing a good job with the plugs, but I'm curious if we can maybe speed up our bloom time here in Utah. So maybe we could get 2 flushes, but I think that's going to take a little research too. So I'm excited. I love the challenges of growing cut flowers.
Oh, that would be so great to get a second flush out of them. I always struggle to get a second flush out of mine as well because our season usually isn't long enough. At
Mm-hmm.
least with temperature wise, we need it to warm up and have them.
Yes.
Okay, before we wrap up today, I've started asking a few quick fire questions. So I have a few questions to ask you and then we'll wrap up here. And my first one is, what is your favorite flower to grow and why?
This probably isn't surprising. Maybe I'll throw in a second one. I've talked about lisianthus. I think because I've spent so much time growing it and trying to grow it, and I love lizzies. They last for so long, but I also love peonies, and that it goes back to that nostalgia. My mom loved them, and they remind me of her, and they're just so beautiful, and it's hard to find someone that doesn't really love peonies.
Yes, I agree. I love them myself. Why do local flowers matter to you?
I think it comes back to connection. I think there's something really beautiful in being able to grow something with your very own hands and then hand it to someone. Um, we're so disconnected from people. We live in these suburbs that there's lots of space between our houses. Um, we go to the grocery store and we might not see the same checkout or the cashier every time. But I think when we find local farmers and we support them and we build these relationships, I loved seeing my favorite customers at the farmers market, or when I know a subscriber really likes a flower, I might make sure I am adding a little extra to her bouquet or making sure she gets the pink one. And it's those relationships and that connection with each other that I think our world needs now.
I love that. That's a great answer. What is one thing you wish more people understood about the cut flower industry?
Um, that is a great question. I I think I just wish more people knew about it. Like, I feel like when I first started growing, um, I I told someone I'm a flower farmer, and they literally thought I was talking about like bread flour. They're like, "So
Oh,
you grow grain?" And in the 10 years since then, I feel like we've made lots of there's been lots of momentum, lots of people know more about local flowers, but I think there's just still so many people that have no idea that local flowers are even a thing, or they don't even think about where flowers come from. So I think I would just wish more people knew about it.
Absolutely. What are you most grateful for that flowers have given you beyond the flowers or beyond the bloom?
Definitely those relationships. We talked a lot about those friendships that we've created through the association or through the backyard cut flower growing class, and I have some really good friends that flowers brought us together. And so I when I started flower farming, I definitely didn't think about, oh, I'm going to make friends. I just thought about growing flowers, but that's definitely been the best part of this journey.
Absolutely. I've had multiple guests say that flower farmers or flower friends make the best friends. So
Absolutely.
that's beautiful. Is there anything, Fawn, that I have not asked you today that you would like to share with our listeners?
Um, I don't think so. I just say if you're sitting on the fence wondering if you have enough room to grow flowers, just try it. Just do it. No one's going to stop you. No one can say that you're too small, or um and you might fail a couple times, but try it again. It's worth doing.
I love it. That's great advice. Well, Fawn, it's been so wonderful getting to chat with you. Tell our listeners where can they connect with you outside of the podcast?
Okay. So I have a website, sagolilyflowerfarm.com, and I have a blog, and I'm trying to update all the lisianthus varieties that I've ever grown with good pictures so that people can kind of read through my notes and choose what they want to grow. I'm on Instagram at the same handle, Sego Lily Flower Farm, and then Snuck Flowers for our Snuck Flower program. We are on Instagram as Snuck Flowers, and then we have um, a website for that at snuckfarm.com. And then
Perfect.
the Utah Cut Flower Farm Association. If you're here in Utah, you should definitely check that out.
Great. We will include links to all of those in today's show notes. And thank you so much for joining us today. And I wish you a wonderful start to 2026. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye bye. Thank you, flower friends, for joining us on another episode of The Backyard Bouquet. I hope you've enjoyed the inspiring stories and valuable gardening insights we've shared today. Whether you're cultivating your own backyard blooms or supporting your local flower farmer, you're contributing to the local flower movement, and we're so happy to have you growing with us. If you'd like to stay connected and continue this blossoming journey with local flowers, don't forget to subscribe to the Backyard Bouquet podcast. I'd be so grateful if you would take a moment to leave us a review of this episode. And finally, please share this episode with your garden friends. Until next time, keep growing, keep blooming, and remember that every bouquet starts right here in the backyard.